At that point, I think for everybody, they just have this desire. They look like any addict looks around them and they see people who aren't addicts and you're like, you wish you had that.
I have the amazing Justin Wenzel here. Justin, how are you?
I don't know about amazing, but I'm good.
I mean, dude, you're doing some pretty cool shit.
Thank you.
I gotta say. So, I mean, you're beast mode every single day. To me, that's pretty amazing because that's hard and that's something I'm trying to stay on top of and forcing myself. And what's that? What do they say? If you, the days you don't want to are the days you need to do it more.
That's where growth happens.
Yeah. And that's like a very real thing for me. And I'm like, I really, really don't want to go to the gym today. So. Oh,
yeah. As far as that goes, yeah, when you're exhausted and that's when you grow. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
when you're about to failure,
yeah,
is when you're growing.
But that's hard. I mean, and I get that part, but it's like some days I'm just like I really don't feel like doing it, and having to force myself. I'm still learning that. I've gotten much better, but it's still a challenge. Do you have a challenge
with that? Not anymore. No, because I know myself that like if I were to skip or if I were to like hit the snooze button, I know how I'm going to beat myself up for it later on. You know, and so it's like, it's not even worth it to me anymore. Even if it's just a snooze button, it's like, just get the fuck up.
Right. So you don't even hit the snooze button.
Oh, no.
You're up.
I wake up at 3 a.m. every single morning.
Wow.
No matter what time zone, vacation, whatever, 3 a.m., read, journal.
Weekends, everything, no days off.
It doesn't matter.
Wow. Yeah. What time do you go to bed?
About 9.
9?
Yep.
Crazy.
You just got to learn how to sleep fast, right?
Yeah. Well, by that time you're getting up so early. I feel like it's gotten earlier and earlier for me as well. Not that early. But I feel by the end of the day, I'm exhausted. So It's like I crash way easier than if I were to get up at like 7, 8 o'clock. Then I'm like 10 o'clock, I'm just wide awake. So
yeah. And I think, I mean, I don't want to get too far into this, but like, I think my sleep schedule is like super dialed in. I wear a CPAP, super sexy. You know, I can put aviators on. It looks like I'm in Top Gun. Yeah. But that like just allows me to sleep like solid through the night. And so when I get up, it's like, 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours of sleep is just perfect. And then I'm up and ready to go anyways. So no excuses.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you always been really strict or
no? I'm a recovering drug addict. But I will tell you this, in my last, like when I lost all my weight, I wasn't very disciplined. I just went to the gym every day. Because I went from being over 350 pounds.
Wow.
And when I lost all my weight, it was like, just get there when I could. But then I was still like very addicted to cocaine, very much alcoholic, pills, everything. But when I started going to the gym at 5 a.m., I was pretty disciplined with it. Even if I was up till 3 a.m. drinking and doing blow, I would get up, strung out, still drunk, and go train. And that was just more, though, I think, for aesthetics and like, vanity than anything, was just to be able to party longer and look better while I did it.
Yeah. Was a part of it maybe even trying to like, well, I'm going to the gym and I'm still doing all of this, so it's not that bad, because some people will.
Justification?
Totally.
Yeah, of course.
And to disguise it,
Yeah, your fucked up addict brain is going to justify anything it can.
To other people, like, I'm not doing that. I'm fine. I've been going to the gym every single day. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Don't you see me? If I was on drugs, there's no way I'd be able to do that.
Right. Meanwhile, your relationships are crumbling. You're just a mess upstairs. And totally.
Well, Justin, I'm really excited to have you here today. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. And really the purpose of this podcast is to spread hope to others that can relate. Maybe they're currently suffering with addiction or anything in life. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I think that you are able to bring to listeners in so many different areas, recovery as well as discipline and motivation and fitness and all of the amazing things that you're doing today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your story and your background. I know that you are in recovery. You shared a little bit about, doing cocaine and alcohol and working out all at the same time. So
right.
How did that all start? Like, were you really young? Like, if you look back
When if I look back to it, I've never ever told this story before, but when I was young, I went on a mission trip and,
like for church?
For church.
Okay.
Yes. In, Ixmiquilpan, Mexico. Okay. I don't think I've ever even thought about this until just now. And this is actually where I believe someone challenged me on my addiction. I was like 13 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. We had to take a 15-passenger van through the mountains. And I can't even believe this even came up right now. They gave us Dramamine. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to the guide that was in charge of us, all the kids, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to need a second one. And he looked at me and he's like, you have a problem with drugs? I swear to God. And I haven't even thought about this in years and years and years, but just right now, for some reason, this just popped in my head. And I was like, what? No, I'm just a big kid. Like, and I'm like, well, that was when it really started, wasn't it?
For Dramamine, because
it made you drowsy and feel loopy. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to feel like that. Uh-huh. 13 years old. Who would have thought? And I didn't come from a family of like drug addicts. My family partied a little bit, like as far as just like drinking wine and stuff goes at first. Right.
Right.
But like good church going parents, like, had sent their kid out on a mission trip, but then it was like after that, started drinking.
Because of the Dramamine?
No. I'm just saying like later on in life.
Right.
No, it wasn't like I took Dramamine. I was on this like church retreat. Like just party in my face. No, that was just one moment I can remember, like when it was first somebody challenged me about something.
Right.
But of course I was 13. I'm like, oh, fuck you. I didn't like. But then things started happening later on in life when it was like, start drinking, and drinking to black out. You're young, 14 years old. You don't know what your tolerance is and, sneaking alcohol from your parents and things like that. And then it was pills.
How old were you when you started taking pills?
Probably 16, 17.
Oh, wow. Do you remember who first introduced you to pills or gave you your first pill?
Yeah, it was Adderall was probably the first stint. And homies from high school, that did Adderall, and then they would like sniff it and stuff, which was terrible. Like just do coke,
right?
and then the same kid that got me into Adderall, shortly after got me into cocaine. And when I was young, like I was I did pretty well financially. Like 18 years old, I had like a condo in downtown in the city. Bad idea for an 18-year-old for sure.
Right.
But definitely got into coke. Had to terminate that lease to move home with my family because of cocaine.
Oh, wow.
Just for a short period of time, but I still drank and stuff. Like, again, you don't know. When you're not in this world, it's obvious now that it's like how we try to switch from substances or we like, oh, we'll still drink or we're just going to smoke weed or we're just going to do this and like whatever. That's what most people believe. Right. Is that they really can leave a substance and replace it with another substance, right? Like that, to us, we understand that's psychosis, but to any normal person that's actually an alcoholic, but it's not identified to them. Right. So it's like, okay, I had a problem with cocaine, moved back home and I'm still drinking wine, getting fucked up, with my family. Right. Inevitably, I'm going to land back into cocaine. Right. And I did. And everything else. And so, but when you're not knowledgeable, when recovery is not a normal topic in a household, I think that could almost be a worse of a situation than people who just like, this is what we do. Right. And I think too, so this, you said how old were you when you moved back home? Like 18, 19. Right. So there's a big denial too there at that age, where it's telling ourselves, well, it just got out of hand, tone it back a little bit. Right. It's a phase. Right. Exactly. And I talk about this often as well, because I grew up with, a good family. There was no addiction. Stable parents, went to a private school, and it was the not knowing.
I had no knowledge. Like now it's, there's podcasts and there's everyone talking about it. And now we're facing a huge epidemic and fentanyl's everywhere. But like for me, when I was younger, it really wasn't taught. There was a DARE program at school, which I don't even remember if it was mandatory to go or if it happened to, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, it wasn't talked about and I didn't have any knowledge.
Right. Well, yeah. And DARE was more of like scaring you about the drugs.
Right. Exactly. Not educating.
It wasn't educating.
Exactly.
And it wasn't educating on actual substance abuse. It was just educating on use.
I had no idea when I took pills that it would quickly, one, not only just downhill spiral to heroin, but that there's even withdrawal symptoms associated with it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Even using heroin, I had no idea what withdrawal symptoms were until I first got sick. And I'm like, I think I'm just sick. And then it's like, no, you're experiencing withdrawal symptoms.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I can't forget that. I never did heroin. I did have a long stint with Vicodin and Norcos, like years where I was taking I might as well have done heroin. I was doing 30, 40 Norco 10s. And this is something I've told a few people about. Oxycotton is what saved my life.
Interesting.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I think I talked about this once on another podcast, but maybe not. Oxycotton is what saved my life because I was being prescribed. So again, you're told, like, it's in your head, you're like, oh, I'm prescribed it. Like I can take it, and the doctor was over prescribing me. This is right at the beginning of the opioid epidemic, right?
And this was Oxy that you were getting prescribed?
It was Norco. But I was getting like 300 a month.
Wow.
Pill bottles like this tall.
What happened that you were getting prescribed?
I faked an injury. I had a knee injury, and then I just prolonged it because I liked the way the Oxys made me, or the Norcos made me feel.
Right.
So my doctor was like a family doctor, wealthy community. Had all the moms on Xanax and running around drinking wine and stuff. Like that was like the area that was what it was. So he was, I could just fake it. Oh man, my back hurts, my knee hurts, and he would just write me for whatever. He didn't care. Hate that doctor's guts still to this day now.
Totally.
He totally enabled me. But it was myself too, but he just did. Well, eventually when he would ask me, because I'd constantly hit him up for refills, private doctor, so he got paid concierge medicine. So you paid him like a subscription every month. And so he'd just write me whatever. I'd be away at college and, I got a sore throat, promethazine with codeine.
Right.
And then next thing you know, all my homies are in class in college drinking purple Sprite, and like that, so it got really out of hand with the Norcos. I would always have like a pocket full of them. Right. And, finally my doctor was like, listen, you're going to blow your stomach out. He's like, we're going to switch you. We're going to switch you to Oxycotton. And that was about the same time Heath Ledger had passed from Oxycotton. And I also was taking Klonopin too. So that was drinking with those two was supposed to be the cocktail that will take you out. Right. My tolerance level was probably so high from the alcohol, the Klonopin and the Vicodin that the Oxycotton wouldn't probably have made a difference.
Right.
But in my head,
in your mind,
it was Oxycotton.
Thank God.
Right.
That you knew can't touch that one.
Right. So I took it exactly as prescribed. Exactly as prescribed. And it stopped serving its purpose. So I just stopped taking it.
And you didn't have withdrawal symptoms?
Oh, yeah.
You did?
Oh, yeah. The diarrhea, the sweats, all that for probably a month.
Yeah.
But it was I ran out. And at that point I had moved to a lake house with a bunch of buddies that I went to college with. This was shortly after college. So we all were they didn't have problems with drugs. They all drank way too much and did cocaine and stuff, but they weren't like me. Right. So I was so busy, out on the boats, having a good time, talking to chicks, stuff like that, where I was so distracted with all the old story of the rat. You put one rat in a cage with water,
right.
Cocaine, water, he's always, you put a rat in a cage with a bunch of shit to do, he's probably going to take advantage of the cocaine less. So I finally started to get this feeling of being just a normal drinker, right? Still a party boy. So, but I didn't have the problem with the pills any longer.
Were you still taking the Klonopin?
No. I honestly just stopped it, but I was just drinking every day. Beer with, bunch of guys, selling cars and living in a lake house together. What else do you do? Play cards at night and drink beer and smoke cigars, whatever, And then it just kept coming back. Things kept resurfacing, back to the pills, back to overdoing it with cocaine. And then you start to get older and you start to like make a lot of money and your resources are through the roof and you live in a city like.
What city were you living in?
In West Michigan and Grand Rapids.
Okay. And how old were you?
So this is like getting into my 30s.
Okay.
You know, and I have a massive, you know, multi 6-figure, you know, job and I'm 30 years old, you know.
And I think that's what's crazy too, is that so many people have, and I think it's just a lack of knowledge, but so many have a misconception of addiction, right? And people who may not have a loved one that's addicted look at addiction as the person pushing the shopping cart or the person sitting in a jail cell or, you know, the gangbanger, whatever.
Right.
And I get it, but it does hit anybody and everybody.
Sure.
And I've, you know, as an addiction specialist and interventionist specialist now for over a decade, it's like the ones I almost feel like I have to worry about more are ones in your situation where it looks like everything's good and you're making money and you look successful. He's fine. Right. And then it's like, how do you intervene on somebody who's making their own money and doing well? You know, it's hard. They're not hitting a point. It's easier to be in denial when everything else around you is going for you.
Right. If you're performing, you know, but on the inside you're rotting. Right.
Exactly. Like you said, going to sleep at 3, 4, maybe not even at all, and still going to the gym to mask what's really happening inside is easy for people to turn an eye. And it's hard because it's like, how do you scream and show like, I need help. I'm suffering inside. I'm hurting inside when people aren't seeing that because there's no obvious.
It is hard to intervene, but inevitably when you have that much destruction going on internally, inevitably there's going to be trauma.
Absolutely.
Right. For me, it was an affair and a divorce, you know, and then that relationship, but I didn't heal. I let like the codependency, and obviously the substance carry into the next relationship.
So were you married and you had the affair, or?
Yeah, no, I was married and I had the affair
because of everything else going on in the substance abuse and.
Well, just I mean, I don't know that. I mean, definitely I wasn't really happy in my marriage to begin with. There was some trauma that had happened prior to me getting married with that person, and then. The first year of us getting married, I just kind of married her because we were getting married. It wasn't like I don't know. I wasn't thinking right. And then the first year in, I had met somebody else, and it was a wrap, you know. And so I exited out of that marriage and jumped right into it. Like literally, was 3 mortgage payments into my home with my current wife, breaking ground on a new build.
Wow. Just boom, boom.
So, and then I was like, I put all my eggs in that basket, obviously, and that crumbled. And that's the trauma that was like, I'm done. You know, that's when it was like suicide, depression, jail.
Wow.
I actually, they'd say in AA, you know, that it's, you know, jail, institution, and death. Literally that all almost happened to me, or did happen to me in one day, in 24 hours.
Wow.
Got out of jail, blood clots from excessive amounts of nitrous use, and then wanted to kill myself that evening. My brother saved my life, and I ended up in psych ward.
Oh my gosh.
So literally all 3 in 24 hours.
What landed you in jail?
DUIs.
Yeah. And then you got out of jail. Did you bail out or did they let you out?
No. So that was jail that I was serving for a probation violation for a DUI that I'd gotten while on probation from another DUI I had gotten.
I mean, did everything turn around for you at that time? Like as far as getting better?
When my brother saved me.
And you went to the psych ward?
I went to the psych ward. Well, first I was in the hospital for a while because I had the blood clots in my lungs. and then psych ward for a week while they found me a bed in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
So then my brother and sister-in-law flew me out to Huntington Beach. And then that's where I've been ever since.
And that's what started your recovery.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, I mean, and maybe you're thinking the same thing as me. Like, for me, it was jail. And today I'm so thankful for that. Because if it wasn't for going to jail, like, I don't know that I'd be here today, you know?
Yeah.
And it definitely was a combination, of course, of that in treatment, in 7 months of treatment, that got me to where I am today. But I mean, I was so terrified of that experience. It was 5 days too long is what I say, because it was everything that could possibly go wrong in a jail. It happened, I feel, while I was there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is happening right now? This is awful. And they just don't have those consequences now. It's like you have to really do a lot more damage to get the consequences that I had just from being an addict, you know, and having pills on me or having heroin on me. Then it was a felony. And I wish that was still the case today, because I feel like it would be saving a lot more lives if it wasn't just a slap on the wrist. And you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, jail's definitely a wake-up call. Unfortunately, it's not for most people.
Yeah.
And I don't even know that's what would have kept me sober. Because I've been to jail plenty of times. I think it was more of like being ready to end my life.
Right. That's a really scary place to be.
And like you're begging for help, but you're also like you really want the help. At that point, I think for everybody, they just have this desire. They look like any addict looks around them and they see people who aren't addicts, and you're like, you wish you had that.
Right.
Assuming you're not so blown out, you don't even notice. But if you have any sense of consciousness left to you, you look at someone who's not an addict that can go to like their daughter's wedding and not get up,
right,
and have a great time, or
right,
someone can like you go to a concert with. Like every addict has that friend that like will go to a concert and have like a beer,
right,
and have the best time out of everybody. Like every addict wants that, right? Some part of them does, unless you're so numb, right? And
it's just so deep down inside, and I think that's that's what makes me really sad is I know that deep down inside I was suffering and I wanted help, but it was so terrifying, the thought of the process of that and what I would need to go through to not feel the way that I was feeling, that it was easier to continue on. And it was so deep that I knew I wanted it, but how could I even possibly reach out to somebody, even say that, because then they would take that seriously, and that means I would have to get the help, and I wasn't ready to do the work for that.
Right. Well, that's why I think like it's our responsibility in doing things like these podcasts, the type of business that I'm in, like, to make it okay and to show like what it can be, and to, I mean, I could probably get 5 to 10 calls from like people I went to college with a week that are like ready to go to detox.
Right. Right.
People you never would have thought, like you look at them on their Facebooks and like, they got their Christmas card with their kids. Right. And you're like, my God, I would have never thought that was you. And they're like, Justin, I see you put yourself out there. Right. And like, I don't hold anything back. Like,
and that's, I feel like the gift that we have through our journey is that people feel comfortable. And I am thankful for that, because that same thing, I've had people that you would never expect, reach out and, hey, can we meet? Hey, do you mind, do you have time to talk? And just by looking at the name, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going through something, and I would have never guessed, but absolutely, what can I do? And be there for them, because that's a really hard phone call, to make. And I was never in that situation. I never picked up the phone and called anybody. I denied and manipulated my way through my addiction until it came crashing down on me. It wasn't.
But did you have someone like you to be able to reach out to?
At the time? That's a good question. I don't think I've even been asked that question. I'm sure if I wanted to pick up the phone and call, I would have had numerous people that I could have called. At the time, I didn't feel I had anybody, because at that time it was like, even when I went to treatment, don't tell anybody. I don't want to tell anyone I was an addict. I don't want to don't tell anybody that I use drugs type deal.
Right.
And I'm sure if I really wanted to call, one of my best friends that I went to school with that, I know would have been there for me, I could have, but the shame and the guilt around that, I didn't. And I feel like you said, through these podcasts and being open about it, this wasn't a thing then. This was 12 years ago. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't, that I was familiar with. I didn't turn on the TV or, there wasn't really social media then that I was hearing other people talk about it. So I felt very alone. I honestly didn't even know what rehab was. I didn't even know rehab existed when I got treatment. And so when I found myself in a van from jail to treatment, I was like, where am I going? And when they told me, and then we got there, I just remember looking around and was just shocked. Like, whoa, these places exist? Like, my first question was, who found this and how much does this cost? And then I found out how much it cost. And I was like, holy shit, where did my family get that money to put me here?
Right.
So I don't know. That's a good question. I've never been asked that.
And that's the reason I also asked that is because, unless you've been in it and been through it, like, it's really dangerous to like come out of detox and reach out to a normie or reach out to people who still socially drink and or do drugs or whatever. Especially socially drink because, no one socially does heroin.
Right.
But we all know that inevitably, like, you're going to pick up, right? You sit in the barber shop, for long enough, you're going to get a haircut, right? But if you come out, like a lot of people that I know, it'll get really bad for them. And then they'll come out of detox even. And the one person that they reached out to was someone who was a casual drinker, someone who never had been through the things that we've been through. So now all of a sudden, like, they're spending time together and that casual drinker is drinking casually. And it's like, dude, you can do this, like, just like this. Well, no, you can't.
Right.
So that's why I asked, because, people that have been through this pain are the ones who are able to impact people that are going through the pain the best.
Right.
Why are most people that work in recovery in recovery?
Right. Exactly.
I wouldn't learn how to ride a bike from someone who is on training wheels.
Exactly. And I feel like when I finished my program, even though I should have been really proud of myself, and I was very proud of myself, but I remember going home, and even after 7 months, which nowadays it's like 90 days, so fresh. And it's hard because I'm trying to explain to families and clients, like, it's not enough time. Like, I was barely mentally starting to feel okay at like 5 months. But going home and feeling so anxious, and my anxiety was through the roof. I did not feel comfortable being home. I'm like, I did all this work and I don't feel in a safe place because I didn't have a support system. Plus, the program I went to was all cognitive therapy based. I didn't learn anything about the 12 steps. It was not an AA or NA program.
Do you practice AA now?
Not too much because I didn't learn it.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't the foundation that your sobriety was built on. So
it wasn't. So it's interesting. And, through my treatment facilities, we offer AA and they learn the steps, and I've spoke at a few meetings, and I've told some of my colleagues, like, it's a little uncomfortable for me. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I want to participate. And anytime I go to a conference, they call it the winners meeting, and they start before the conference starts at 7 a.m. We go to a meeting, and I love them. Like, it is definitely a safe place for me with a bunch of other colleagues who have long-term recovery, just to be able to say, I had a really shitty day yesterday,
right?
And I'm thankful and I have gratitude for this. So I definitely have been able to relate now, but it is a little bit of a challenge because I haven't even sat down and done any of the steps. Like, that just wasn't my foundation. So coming out of it, I didn't have like, okay, when you're done with treatment, go to a meeting. And when you go home, find a home group.
Right.
That wasn't even part of my discharge planning at all. And so trying to find people to connect with, I was like, I don't feel comfortable. So I ended up just going back to the program. And luckily they did a training program there where you can train for 3 months. You get your cell phone back. You're basically what we called students without a vehicle. You get your cell phone. And that was the best thing that I did for myself because I surrounded myself back where I was comfortable with the recovery group that everybody was still doing the same thing. And that's what I needed. And I ended up staying there for over a year.
Yeah. Well, and that's incredible. I mean, but here's the thing with the AA part. Like I do work at AA.
Yeah.
Okay? But I do not believe that a lot of these guys that I'm, in with, and they're going to give me if they listen to this. I do not believe that that's the only way to get sober. And nor do I even think that it's the best for most people. I do believe it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
But here's the one thing that I do see with you, where you took your sobriety, is that you built a life around the 12 step. And in my eyes, the way I looked at it was like, yeah, I got out of every step, 1 through 11. I got something out of. I built some strength, and some of it was whatever. I still took it serious, but it wasn't as profound as it was for other people that I knew.
Right.
But the 12 step was like that's when I was like, there's meaning to this. Right. So like you built literally your entire life and career around the 12 step, which is, obviously carrying that message and helping people, maybe not carry the message of AA, but bringing people
and being open to that. And it's like you said it perfectly right now, right? If anyone's listening, that it's not the only way to recovery.
Right.
And I feel that's very important, because for me, that was not, and honestly, Justin, I had a lot of embarrassment and a little bit of shame around not knowing the 12 steps fresh into my career. I won't say in my recovery, because I was surrounded at that time around other people who were having the same principles and tools as me. But once I entered the field, everybody was 12 step. Everybody was AA. And I was like, this is not, I don't know this stuff. And I felt embarrassed and shamed to be like, this is how I got sober, because I didn't want to be judged. And I feel like that's one thing that I love about providing to my clients is let's offer all modalities, and you figure out which one you're clicking with. If that means you need to go to a meeting for the rest of your life, every single day, shoot 2 times a day, then that's what you're going to do, because that is so much more valuable to your sobriety and what you need to do than not going to a meeting. I don't care. And if somebody else is through spiritual and, cognitive therapy or whatever modality it is that works for them, I encourage it.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's different.
Everybody's different. Exactly. There's no cookie cutter program.
No.
There's no cookie cutter approach. And I feel like that's what I'm really loving is seeing all those different programs develop now based on that. Everyone's doing something different. They're doing experiential outings and sound healing and meditation. And there's just different things that are now in treatment that weren't in treatment before.
Right. Well, based on the awareness, which is cool.
Yeah. How long was your program?
In rehab? 5 months.
Oh yeah. See, so, and was that through like a step down program or full residential?
Full residential to OP.
Makes a difference, right?
But the difference is like, I had that fear, that anxiety really about what my life is going to be like when I go back to my hometown. All right. And hometown, it's a big city and everybody knows me. Massive family business. I mean, huge family business. Everybody knows my family. Everybody knows me. Like, what the am I going to do when I get back there? Not to mention, I have unfinished business with my ex. I have a home that we just, I can't just move back in. Like at first, my first 2 months were probably wasted thinking that that's what the outcome was going to be, that she was just going to welcome me back and like everything was going to be hunky dory, but not the case whatsoever.
Did you end up going back home?
No, I stayed.
You stayed?
No, that's what I was about to say. I didn't go back. I just stayed. The fear was the one thing, but the straight up fulfillment that I got from being in Huntington Beach and the people and the networks that I had made and the fact that like everybody knew me there for me.
Right.
They didn't know me for the party boy. They didn't know me for the family industry and my last name and all that shit. They knew me for just Justin. And I was like, I can get used to this. Totally. I can get really used to this. And not only that, I have a clean slate and an opportunity to and I've always had a good reputation, sort of, other than the affair and stuff. Like I've always been somebody you could trust.
Right.
Right. that affair thing stained my name quite a bit, but I mean, it happened. But it wasn't a matter so much about like building like a reputation business wise, because I've always had a good reputation, family business, great reputation. Like everything was always, on the up and up. But here I had a chance to like really spread my wings and like really actually, and I had people that believed in me out here and that like stood by my side. So when I got into doing what I do now, it was like there was so much support. At that point, it was like such a drastic change that of course I got so much hate from the people back home.
I was just going to ask, how did everybody back home take you wanting to stay out here?
I didn't really get my dad. Really, the only opinion I cared about was my dad's. We're very close, and he is my hero. The dude came from nothing at all, poor poverty, to becoming very, very, very successful man, to say the least.
That's amazing. So he was supportive.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
He knew. Well, that's the thing. Parents know, right?
Well, think about this. He bred me to run his companies.
Wow.
Like my entire life was built to run his companies. So like when I said I want to stay out here, it was good. Stay out there.
And that's a big decision.
Yeah. That's a big boy decision.
That's a big boy decision. That's a on the right path decision too, because that's I feel a very big challenge for majority of people in that situation who leave their hometown, even if they're in the same state or they go out of state, is once they get close to finishing their program, what do I do next? And I feel like majority know staying where they're at is probably the best decision, but it's the hardest decision to make because it's so easy to be like, well, but my support system and I need to get back home and I have this, and that to do. I mean, and you came from a family where you could have just went back and kept working with the business.
Yeah.
Instead of starting all over.
Right. That was the plan.
Crazy. What part of your process did you feel you needed to stay?
There's a couple things. After like month 2 or 3, would have been after month 2 of my program, my ex had ghosted me, wasn't replying. I was like writing her letters, nothing. Like literally, I was like, this is done. Like once I could accept it, like she told, like, and from what I understood, because she liked to party quite a bit too, like me. Like I just couldn't cut it off like she could, but we both we loved drugs, we loved like psychedelics and all the things, right? So like I think, but she could always turn it off. I couldn't. But I think my family knew that wasn't a great relationship, and that so I think her and my family I know that they were like, let's just cut off communication while he's out there. So she did. And then when I was like, okay, that's over, it's done, I started my program back over. And I was actually working a really good program at the recovery center that I was at. I was killing it, model client, right? And humbled, someone that was used to living the life that I was living to getting driven around in a van by a kid 10 years younger than me from AA meeting to AA meeting. That was humbling.
Yep. So true.
And the people in the rooms, like, you got like every walk of life in those rooms. And I'm sitting there like, what the I got a roommate?
Yeah.
34 years old. I got a roommate.
Yeah. And you're in the size that you are on probably a twin bed, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, no. Well, listen, no, I was
or
in a
top bunk, even worse.
No. Yeah. No, actually my recovery center was really nice. And like they took care of the people who paid cash. They didn't take care of the people who paid cash. I shouldn't say that, but yeah, we got the nice beach house and the big beds and everything. Well, but I still had a roommate. That roommate is one of my best friends still to this day. But that was humbling.
Totally.
So for me to say and make the decision to stay another 2 months and having this schmuck drive me around in a dented up piece of van with 5 other guys in it.
You're winning right there. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That 2 months though was when I actually did it for myself.
Right.
And that 2 months of growth was tenfold the 3 months that I was doing it for somebody else.
Agreed. I feel like I got so much out of my training program versus the 7 months in treatment. And I remember when you're training, you learn how to do searches, you learn how to, take calls, those are the beginning stages, right? And I'll never forget doing my first search. And so my addiction had started with the Oxy days. So how that scared you almost basically straight from the pills, that got me hooked real quick.
Okay. That's how it worked out for most people. And
most people.
Somehow my brain went the other direction.
Yeah, no, okay, don't do that, but continue doing these drugs, right? Yeah. So for me, the Oxy days is where it's like even using heroin, I still missed Oxy. And it got to a point where I was spending $180 for one pill, which is ridiculous. And then splitting that one pill with numerous people. So then when it switched to heroin, downhill spiraled. And my first search was a lady who was completely wasted. And she's sitting there and she goes, oh yeah, by the way, I forgot that I had these in my pocket. And she pulls out just 2 perfectly blue 80s. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I have a decision to make right now. This is the first time I've seen these Oxys since the last time I was using them. And I could take these and just like turn one in and like be half proud of myself that I still did the right thing by turning it into my supervisor and saying, oh, look what she handed it to me. Here you go. And I'm going to pocket the other one. That crossed my mind. And I was extremely proud of myself that all that work, I'm like, okay, I got tempted there for a second. And I'm like, no. And I turned them both in. And I was like, holy shit. Like that was for me out of everything.
Was that the first time that you were really like trialed like that?
That was the first time.
Tested?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, now we see that all the time, having treatment. But that was the first time. And that was, my palms were sweaty. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do right now?
Right. Because now you're like, you guys collect pills all day long.
All day. And it's crazy how it doesn't even faze me now.
Right.
But at the time, I'm like, I never forget that. So even some of my staff that are, in recovery or earlier phases of their recovery, I get nervous with the searches because I remember what it did to me. And at that time, I had like 8-9 months sober. Mm-hmm. And I was like cringing and I didn't know what to do, but I made the right decision. But I very quickly could have just thrown everything that I worked for away and taken that pill and just poof,
Right. Yeah. When I came here, I had like every intention. I took my last Adderall. So I had not drank for years before I actually went to rehab. And I took my last Adderall on the flight to California. And I had my backpack and I had my prescription Adderall and everything. I had every intention. I was like, I'm totally going to be able to like still take Adderall while I'm in rehab. Nope. Mm-hmm. They took it away so fast for me. I was like, all right, well, I got to figure this out, without it.
Right.
And that was the last time. But that was the last drug I ever took was Adderall. That was prescribed. But I never just took what was prescribed.
Right, exactly. And that's what's hard is like people come in and it's like, okay, I want to get off of alcohol, but I've been prescribed, Klonopin I've been on it for 7 years.
Right.
And I'll be honest, as a treatment provider, it gets pretty challenging, honestly, because we'll have some people who are not abusing their prescription and they really are hardcore alcoholics and they've been on a prescribed medication for years. And it's like, making sure we're doing the right assessment to say whether they should or shouldn't be on it, because there are some individuals who need to be on some sort of psych stabilization medication.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But there's other things for
right.
that than
of course.
benzos.
Exactly. So, but and having to convince that person to get off of that while coming to treatment. I mean, we face that all the time with
right.
Okay, well, I want to get off of this, but I've been on sub-maintenance because I used to be a heroin addict. So it gets tricky where it's like, okay, we're there's just so much that can go into that. I mean, luckily for me, I never was put on subs after. Cold turkey. Yeah, so sometimes my clients are like, oh, I'm going to be hurting. I'm like, oh, please. I remember.
Yeah, I know guys that are on subs from like Valium.
Right? It's a thing. I feel like some treatment programs just throw everybody on subs. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I mean, I have gotten into arguments with providers and the nerve that they'll sit here and say, are you a doctor? Because they're a doctor. And I'm like, no, I'm not, but I'm a recovering heroin addict. And if I was put on that stuff, I guarantee you I wouldn't have what I have today and I wouldn't be where I am today.
Right.
So I think we need to be doing a little bit more of a thorough assessment before we just throw somebody on maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah. I had met somebody, or I actually know somebody that was on subs, and all they took was Valium. And it wasn't like they were, they were obviously killing themselves, but they were still showing up to work.
Right.
How bad would it really,
I mean, I had a client who I had worked really hard with to get them on the path that they were on, and they went to a sober living, and then they decided to switch sober livings into another program, and I called to check up on him. He's like, oh, now I'm on subs. I'm like, you are a meth addict. What do you mean you're on subs? Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
You never even tried an opiate. Like, how are you on Suboxone?
That's why he switched.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that great? But, that goes to where it's still happening today. Even scarier, it's happening even in treatment programs when, like you said, you were getting prescribed a ton of Norcos for a extended knee injury that you were able to prolong and keep getting that, prescription.
Right.
It's scary stuff. So what do you do? What do you do now? So you went to treatment, you decided to stay.
Yep. Got out, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? So what I always do. Took over a car dealership. I walked right in the showroom with my resume, and I think I have a really good resume in that industry.
Yeah.
And picked the job that I wanted. Literally. Started the next day. Massive career, big ass paycheck. Just went to town.
Now I'm curious. When you got back, because you obviously took a break from that while you were in treatment, did that at all trigger you going back into a dealership?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
Because I would always have like stints of sobriety. Like I'd do like, sober October. So like whatever.
Dry
and
January.
Yeah. But I would honestly, you'd always feel so great, so like I would always have stints, and I knew how I performed. Everybody would love it when I was sober. Right. Like, I was great up, but I was on another level sober. Right. So when I took it as like, again, nobody knows me. The owner of the store who hired me to run his sales department and everything, like I told him my story. I was very clear with him, but I also told him I know how a bill becomes a law and I know how to make this store a lot of money. So he was like, cool, let's go. And worked my ass off for him. And there were some issues like that in the auto industry at that time with inventory and things like that. So it was not as fulfilling. The business wasn't as fulfilling as it once was for me. So I kept seeing this dude, and we don't want to say his name, but I kept seeing this dude, his stuff on Instagram. And I was like, man, I can relate to this guy. And so I just like out of the blue one day I hit him up, and he was like, bro, you kill it at this. Like, you should be doing what I'm doing. Like, you're making pay. I'm like, well, actually, I'm making a lot of money, bro. You're making fucking pesos compared to what you could be making now. He actually ended up being right, but he also ended up burning me. So we don't need to get into that. But that's when I signed up on his coaching program, right? And I was like, I want to do this. I want to like talk about my sobriety, and I'm jacked and I'm tatted up, and I could do this, right? Well, I could. And even though he gave me nothing and burned me and that doesn't matter. I've been burned a million times in my life. It's okay. But I'm a businessman. And so I just treated this like I'm going to collect contacts. I'm going to like set up a follow-up system, and I'm going to scale myself to where I believe that I can be in this while running a massive car dealership. I'm going to just do both. And I got so much fulfillment out of the coaching. And like, it was so funny because I would like be sitting on my phone and I would like close somebody up for like $1,000, like on like a 90-day program or whatever it was. And then like but at the same time, like my massive salary check would hit and I'd be like, I got $1,000 from Instagram, like making, helping somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The salary check didn't even fucking matter. I was so stoked about like, I have a little business right now.
Wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I started to scale it. And then it started to become $100,000 a month, $250,000 a month,
that's amazing.
$400,000 a month. And it was like, well, I'm done with the car business. I'm gonna dump everything into this.
So you're not working with cars at all anymore?
Oh no. I own Justin Wenzel Fitness, which is my coaching company, which is sobriety, mindset, nutrition, and training. So I have clients, and then I have JW Fit, which is my coaching agency.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Now, is it just based in Huntington, or do you?
No,
have
we're
it
worldwide.
All over.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so proud
Norway,
of you.
Spain.
Wow.
All over Florida, Michigan, obviously. So the president of my company is Scotty. Okay. And Scotty is 9 years sober. Great husband, great father. He was running a construction company. His own construction company, Scotty Soltis Construction. Okay. Custom homes. Great company. Been doing it his entire life. Okay. His dad's, it was his dad's company too, you know. Mm-hmm. He's a little bit older than me. He's 40. But we've always known each other. Grew up in the music scene. He's all tatted up, you know, like we're both like punk rockers back then and partied our asses off. So we always knew each other. We were always really close friends. I had some things go viral on Instagram, or actually some things go viral on Facebook. Okay. That blew up my Instagram. Like it was because they were synced together. Okay. Stuff that I hated too. I sounded like the biggest fucking cheese dick you've ever, like I hated these videos. I was like, I'm going to take it down. And then my brother was like, Jay, what did you do on Facebook? You're blowing up at 50 million views on this thing. Oh my gosh. Okay. And, but it actually like, it carried over to Instagram, and then it like my engagement and all that stuff started to blow up on Instagram. So Scotty's from my hometown. So
interesting.
Yeah, so he knew because people were asking, "What's going on with Justin?" He fucking moves out to.
Oh, so he lives over there.
Yeah, he's still in my hometown. Still, like you know, he actually coaches some of my employees that were at my dealerships and stuff. So like we're like very tight, and then he buys his cars from my dad's dealerships. Like you know, like he's like we're very very like everybody's tied in. So I called him out of the blue. I'm like, "Hey man, did you notice I blew up on Instagram?" And he's like, "Yeah, Justin, everybody noticed. How could we miss?" And I'm like, well, cool. Sit down because I got to talk to you real quick. And he's like, at that time, Scotty was like move-in day at a new build. So like it was chaos. And he like took his time to like just sit down for a second. And I'm like, look, dude, like don't really think, but I have this plan, but I need you to like not think and just come with me. And he's like, and I hung up on him actually because that's just how I am. I hung up on him. And then he called me back 10 minutes later. He's like, bro, I'm in. He's like, okay, it's going to cost you some money, by the way. He's like, cool, let's go. So we started like on an open Zoom call that was like pretty much like around the clock. And I'm like putting the pieces together with like marketing and branding and advertising. And this is a process for this and that's a process for that. And then we signed our first coach. And I was like, yeah, we signed our first coach, you know. And then 10 coaches later, 20 coaches later, now we're at the LA Fitness Expo and people are recognizing us there, right? A few months later, flown out to the Columbus, Ohio for the Arnold Classic. There we signed the winner of the Arnold Classic, George Ward.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
100 and some coaches later, we landed Flex Wheeler, the greatest bodybuilder of all time. And he's got a crazy story. Mm-hmm. He was with me and the guys at Hopeaholics, right?
Amazing story.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So now we're like, you know, we built this into like just... And it's all guys, like all my guys that are leadership are all sober. Most of them are in recovery, except my art director. My art director is 40 years sober.
Wow.
Straight edge. He's 40 years old.
Wow.
So he's been straight edge his entire life. He's never touched a substance in his life.
Crazy.
Church boy.
Church boy.
You know?
Yeah.
So
he didn't take Dramamine on his mission.
He didn't trade me. No, he did not. He did not. He said you can hold it for Justin.
That's amazing. Do you trip out? Do you just like look and trip out on life, like where it is today?
Yeah, I do. I'm stoked.
Dude.
And now I wake up and I just like my career is just being me. Mm-hmm. Like that's it. I embarrass myself every day. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know, I'll get on camera and trip over my words. Like, I'm not the most articulate, well-spoken person, but I don't give a because I'm just me.
Right.
Every day I get to wake up, be me, work with my best friends. And it's funny because like we're on Zoom so much and like Scotty's in Michigan, but he flies out here all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll be on Zoom in the morning. He'll hop on a flight, you know, obviously with the time change, it's like really quick for him to get here, you know, and he lands and it's like lunchtime here. And it's like, hey man, how's it going? You know, like he lives 2,000 miles away.
Yeah.
But it's like, he's always with me, always by my side. So it's like my best friend in the world is like, we have that dynamic. And then Dane Poole, who's our vice president, he started with the same mentor that burned him. Wow. Okay. And we met in that program and he was crushing it. And he lives in Huntington. So I'm like getting my beard, I was getting my beard trimmed and I had like the towel over my eyes and stuff. He comes by and smacks my legs, like, big dog, what's up? And I'm like, Dane Poole, right? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, you get your beard done here too? That's how he talks. He's like, football guy, you know. And I'm like, hey, that day we became best of buds too, you know.
It's crazy.
And then last thing I'll say is my CFO, I met him on Halloween last year. Okay. And he was in a bar and he like came up to me. He's like, this jack guy, tatted up guy. He's like, I got to know this guy. Right. And he's all up at the bar. Meets me that day. He signs up as my client the next day.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Gets sober, gets fucking jacked.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Then I need some help with scheduling appointments and things like that. So he's like, first he's like, okay. So he gets jacked, gets sober, has some time sober. And he's like, I want to start coaching this stuff. I'm like, yeah, Matt, you can do that. Let's go. So he comes on as a coach, like when me and Scotty are putting everything together, crushes it in coaching. And then we're like, we need some help. Who can we trust? Matt, absolutely. But Matt's been with me since day one. So then Matt starts setting appointments for us. Turns out every time I'm like, Matt, I need this done. Matt's like, dude, that was done like 3 days ago. What else do you got for me? And I'm like, what the I'm like, okay, well, and then it was like, we need a CFO. We need somebody to handle our money and to handle, because there's like, we had like so much coming in from like all directions. Like, I went to college for like accounting and all that. I was like, I know what I'm doing, but like, I'm also like, I'm mom and dad right now. Right. While like Scotty is like, he's not so much into the dollar, like the money and stuff like that. So I'm like, I need a fucking CFO. I need someone quick. So now Matt's the CFO of my company. Wild. That's crazy. And he's actually from up here. He's from Antioch. Antioch. Okay. He played for the Colorado Rockies. Wow. Yeah. That is wild. Sober, got a great girlfriend now. Just had his car stolen. Oh my God. He just had his car stolen like a few days ago. He's driving around in one of my vehicles now. He's pimping big time.
Maybe he did that on purpose because he knew you'd lend him one of those.
He had a dope car too, but he didn't know I was going to let him, but I did. Wow. But yeah, he just had his car stolen. So that's the only negative thing really that's happened in young Matt's life. And then he was just inducted into the Antioch Hall of Fame for sports, for baseball. That's crazy. Is that a big deal there? I think they have from what I understand, they're pretty good in sports. Yeah. And so he lives in Huntington now too? Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah, so almost all of us in leadership are from Huntington. That's cool. And then we have a setter from Vancouver. That's rad. Yeah, young kid, also sober. Wow. And how long has your business been going now? So we're going on 2 years. Dude, that is crazy. Yeah, 2 years. So a lot has happened from going to jail, wanting to commit suicide. Did you attempt? Yeah. Well, I was blowing myself up with nitrous oxide, and then I had my weapon, I had my gun, and I was going to blow my brains out. I was just going to get myself so numb and whatever. And thank God your brother walked in, or I was in my truck in my garage. I lived in a high-rise condo place because that's when I first separated from my ex-fiance. So I had like a garage inside of a garage setup kind of thing. And I was in my truck. And he knew I was in there because he picked me up from jail. Mm-hmm. So when we drove back, he dropped me off at my building, and like there's like a front door and then the garage. And instead of going to my front door, I went to my garage. So he felt it. Yeah. Yeah. And I had nitrous setups in all my whips. I was like crazy about it because I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
You know, because I was on probation.
On probation, got
right?
it.
So I couldn't drink, I couldn't do anything. So I was like, "F it, I'm gonna whip it up."
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you knew that wasn't going to come up on a test,
right, dude? I was spending $12,000 a month on nitrous oxide.
Oh my god. Well, it's such a quick.
Yeah, and if you do it long enough, you can really jack yourself up.
Totally.
Hands are all frostbitten.
Oh. Yeah, and numb, right?
Yeah.
And go, oh my god.
Yeah. I would fall asleep in my bed with the canister and it'd like roll over and burn me on my hip.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Horrible. I mean, look at everything you've accomplished. Like, holy shit, dude. I mean, that is the journey that it's like we want to share with other people. It's
right.
like, look at everything that you have that Justin has created. Not the dealership guy back home or any of it. Like you right. said, I came here, stayed here for me. People got to know me and clean slate. Yeah, you went back and, you started with what you knew and what you were good at and what you were passionate about, which was going back into a dealership. Would you have ever even thought that you would be?
So I thought about this the other day and it was inevitable. And I don't want to sound arrogant at all. It was inevitable that I would always be a millionaire.
Yeah. Okay.
Inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
But I never imagined in my entire life that I would become a self-made millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a different feeling that, my dad treats me like a peer now and not like his son.
Right. Oh, wow.
He still treats me like a son.
Yeah.
But he, you know what I mean? Like now, like when he looks at me, it's like, you're making daddy money now. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, man.
That's amazing.
Yeah. When he shows me his new Bentley, I show him my new Maybach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but then again, the money doesn't fucking matter. But at the same time, it is like the level of because as addicts, right? Like we're the most committed people there are, right?
Right.
If we will take a bus, we will take planes, trains, and automobiles to go score that bag of dope.
For sure.
But when we channel our commitment into
mm-hmm.
something like this, and we take our addiction and we just put it all into this,
right?
The 3 a.m. wake ups, the constantly putting myself out there, the no f***s given, the working around the clock, the making decisions very quickly. And that's the biggest part, is to be able to not let time fly by, because in a very competitive industry, when you take time to think about things and all that, like everybody else is making the decision. So they're jumping ahead of you.
Right.
So all of those things combined, when you take an addict and you give them that,
mm-hmm.
that's like a smorgasbord. That's a drug fucking buffet for an addict.
Yeah.
To be able to boom, decision,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's so true.
Make a move.
And that's what I tell people, seriously, because addicts have a different mind, like the creativity side, the hustle that we have in us to just, we want it, we're going to get it. Like you said, we'll go whatever length it is to get it. So if you take that mindset, eliminate the addiction and the drugs, and you put that towards something that's actually successful and good, it makes you one hell of a person. Look at everybody who has, treatment facilities or different businesses through recovery. There's some badass people.
Right. Well, look at
solid, loving, and trustworthy. That's what I've learned. Most of them, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That are in solid recovery, who have really, really found themselves. They're those people. Those are your people. Like, we are able to go to each other for no matter what.
And that goes back to like us working that 12-step, regardless of whether it's the AA 12-step or not. But if you get a sense of fulfillment, in helping somebody,
mm-hmm.
and you want to truly live a life of service, then you reap what you sow.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
I never thought that. I told you, I got excited about the $1,000 sign up from the guy that was drunk, losing his family,
mm-hmm.
over my huge salary.
Right.
But that's where my energy went. That's where my intention was, to go towards that guy constantly and be of service to that guy.
Right.
So it shouldn't be a surprise that if you take that intent with my work ethic,
mm-hmm.
that it's going to turn into something great.
Right. Exactly.
But people want to skip that step.
Right.
You can't skip that step.
Mm-mm. Nope. And that's finding your purpose. You know what I mean? And that's like, no matter what age you are or what phase you're in, there is always room for change and growth.
Right.
And change is a really scary thing, but change is my new favorite word now,
100%.
you know, and if something scares me, that's when I lean into it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I used to not. I used to be terrified of anything that consisted of change. If it scared me, I'd avoid it. Where now I'm like, if it's scary, that means that I need to lean into that, trust it, and do it. Because usually it turns out okay.
We started this conversation off with things that you don't want to do. When you do them anyways, that's where growth is.
Right. Exactly.
Right? And that applies tenfold when it comes to things that you're afraid to do. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep. 100%.
You're afraid to do it and you do it anyways. Now we're talking Bruce Banner, Incredible Hulk.
Right, exactly. What are two either words or what phrases do you turn to when you are in a scary or a bad situation that you hold on to?
Oh my God. I have to give you two?
No, or one.
Okay.
Like what, do you have a go-to? Like if stuff's starting to feel a little rocky or, you know, scared or whatever the situation may be, what do you hold on to?
Present moment. Always. Always. I will tell you that if you are capable of staying in the present moment, especially when you have a workload in front of you, that's Adderall XR 10,000. If you have 48 hours in a day. If you can, like compared to everybody else, if you can stay present. So obviously we understand that, you know, the difference between depression and anxiety, fear and past, and present or future and past, right? Sorry. If you can stay in that present, like you can really get through anything.
Right.
Because none of that matters.
Right.
None of it matters. And like that's where people get so caught up tripping. And then the future tripping, thinking about the shit they could have changed. Like, dog, you can't do anything about it.
Right.
So I mean, think about the time you've spent and wasted, especially in addiction, but even outside of addiction, the time that you've been thinking about all these things. You're wasting time and you're not like, so yeah, like, you know, I've faced some tough business situations, not tough decisions because I'm really good at decision making, but tough situations in business. And I guess a couple that were decisions that I made, but when I started to like overanalyze things, oh, well, what if this turns into that and this? And then I pulled myself right back to present, and I've gotten really good at this now. But like I was able to it doesn't matter. And like literally you got to brush it off like that because it doesn't. But you can actually take a second and look at actually what it is and find the quick solution for it, which goes back to your decision-making skills. Right. If I just pay this person, will it go away? I mean, that's or whatever. Like that was a recent decision, like just a derelict that was like after me for something. And I was like, well, what if I just paid him? And he's not asking for much.
Right.
If I just paid him, would it make it go away? Yeah, it would. Then I don't have to worry about it. Cool, pay him.
Perfect. Yeah.
But that's what I guess that's what I'm saying is like, if you can stay in the present and just actually look at the issue in front of you, not worry about what happened with it, not worry about what's going to happen with it, just make that decision right then.
Right.
You should be able to get through anything. Yeah. So that was my pontificating way to like tell you to answer that question for you.
I love it. Well, Justin, thank you so much. I mean, I'm proud of you. You're doing amazing things. And I feel like your story is changing lives and touching so many people. How do people follow your journey? And
just go to Instagram. Simple as that. Justin Wenzel Fitness. Just, you're going to get loaded with ads afterwards. No.
Yeah, right. Stay tuned. Well, perfect. Thank you so much. And until next time.
Yeah, thank you.